When Xie Lin was banished from the capital, I married him in place of my elder sister. For 5 years in the northern frontier, he was outwardly a destitute, idle prince, but secretly, he was training troops and winning over people's hearts. On the surface, I played along with his act, while behind the scenes I worked tirelessly to amass a fortune. The people of the northern frontier all said,
Prince Jing and his consort are good people.
And kind-hearted soul, too.
It is just a pity they have such bad luck.
No one expected that Xie Lin would one day ascend the throne. Everyone said he would reconcile with my elder sister. After all, the two of them were childhood sweethearts, and Xie Lin's love for her ran deep. Back then, when my elder sister broke off the engagement, she had no other choice. I did not argue. I packed up my belongings overnight, preparing to leave for good. Who would have thought that just as I stepped out of the palace gates, I would run straight into Xie Lin, clad in his imperial robes?
Where are you going?
He looked displeased and snatched the bundle of belongings from my hands.
You scoundrel. You may leave, but the money stays.
I was dumbfounded by his words and almost cursed him out right then and there, fearing for my life. I barely managed to hold back my temper because of what he said. I reminded him, "Has your majesty forgotten our deal?" Xie Lin frowned, pretending to have memory loss.
What deal?
On our wedding night 5 years ago, your majesty said that once we drank the nuptial wine, we would be allies. We were to be open and honest with each other and help one another with loyalty. I helped you win the empire, and you would ensure I got what I wished for.
And then what?
Xie Lin leaned in, close to me, his eyes darkening.
Does the wish you want granted mean parting ways with me? What on earth is wrong with me to make you look down on me this much?
Talk about shifting the blame. My legs went weak and I nearly fell, but Xie Lin grabbed me by the arm.
Stand up straight and talk. Don't even think about brushing this off.
He really does know me well. Just as I was about to speak, he changed his mind.
Forget it. I don't want to hear your nonsense. Get back to your Empress's palace. Shut the doors and reflect on your actions. Do not come out until you are told.
I was placed under house arrest. For an entire month I didn't see Xie Lin once. However, his head eunuch, Chang Sheng, would send people over every few days to deliver imperial warnings and make an example of others to warn me. The young eunuch lacked experience, and after I tricked and frightened him, I managed to get a lot of inside information out of him. According to him, Xie Lin has been arguing with the ministers for a whole month, and the emperor is deeply worried. Today, he even skipped court due to a sudden onset of panic. As I snacked on melon seeds, I asked, "What are they arguing about?"
Well, this matter.
The young eunuch stole a glance at my face, trembling all over.
Prime Minister Gu reported that, initially, your marriage to the eldest Miss Gu was arranged by the consort dowager and decreed by the late emperor when you went to the north. The eldest miss happened to be gravely ill and fell unconscious. You feared she wouldn't survive the bitter cold of the north, so you secretly married in her place, though you did it out of kindness. It still caused the eldest miss to be separated from you. Later on, she was even snatched away by the prince and suffered immensely. Now that the dust has settled, everything should be returned to its proper place.
Returned to its proper place indeed. I didn't even look up. What did the emperor say?
The emperor said that although it was an accidental mix-up, what is done is done. So he can only go with the flow. Chancellor Gu spat blood and anger on the spot, crying out that he had failed the consort dowager and let down the late emperor. He begged the emperor to punish him for negligence, or else he would resign and return to his hometown.
What about the others? What is their attitude?
More than half of them kept quiet, but everyday officials submit reports, imploring the emperor to honor the late emperor's last wish and fulfill Chancellor Gu's absolute loyalty.
He certainly is loyal to the core. To fulfill Gu Yunshu's wish, not only must I remain completely dead, but he is even willing to let the entire Jiyu family take the blame. I set down my teacup, pass a message to the emperor for me, tell him I have self-awareness, and lack the face to stay by his side, beg him to let me go. The young eunuch fell to his knees with a thud.
Your Highness, please don't say such things. Your Highness, please don't say such things.
If you don't dare to deliver it, let Chief Eunuch Chang do it. I raised my hand to cut him off and kept it brief. I don't want the title, but money. I must have every single penny. I truly wanted to leave, which is to say, I wanted to flee for my life. Before the new year, the late emperor fell gravely ill. Prince Zhiwei joined forces with the Lu family to imprison the empress and lock down the imperial city, plotting to usurp the throne. Xie Lin rebelled under the guise of purging evil ministers and led his troops south. At first, the regional princes and the great families in the capital were just watching the show. A few secretly sided with Zhiwei. No one expected that Pei Shuo, the commander of the northern defense, would be the first to respond and pledge his allegiance allegiance to Xie Lin. Even less did they expect. The elite troops led by Xie Lin would be unstoppable. In just 2 short months, he took 7 cities in a row and pressed directly toward the capital. Not only did lords from all over show their strong support, but the major families led by the Zhiwei family also surrendered. Before Xie Lin even entered the capital, his victory was assured. When he excitedly picked me up and shouted, I knew that our time as husband and wife had come to an end. Though Zhiwei was beheaded and the entire Lu family was executed, having survived in this circle for so long, I knew that their remnants were already spread throughout the court. Those in the open are easy to eliminate, but those in the shadows are hard to clear out. Xie Lin seized the throne through fighting and killing, but he couldn't be a good emperor by just killing blindly. He desperately needed the strong support of the major families and high officials. The Guyu family was the key to all of this. Not only had the Guyu family's ancestors served as high officials, but they were also related to the Pa family, who held heavy military power, and the filthy rich duke's estate. They had connections everywhere. My grandaunt is the old matriarch of the Pa family. My brother Gu Jie married the duke's second daughter, and my father, Gu Huayuan, serves as the vice-chancellor, with disciples all over the court. If Xie Lin wanted to bind the Guyu family to him, the easiest way was to make a daughter of the Guyu family the empress, and as the eldest daughter of the Guyu family, and Xie Lin's original wife. On the surface, I was the undisputed choice, but in reality, if I didn't run away quickly, losing my head would be a matter of time, because the Guyu family was fully intent on having Gu Yunshu replace me. As soon as Xie Lin became emperor, they desperately praised Gu Yunshu, extolling her loyalty in cutting ties with Zhiwei, and using the excuse that she was in poor health and constantly had nightmares, requiring the emperor's auspicious presence to protect her, to beg for her entry into the palace. But Xie Lin rejected them on the pretext of poor health, saying he had enough on his own plate. They still wouldn't let it rest. According to the rules, after the enthronement ceremony, the Grand Empress coronation ceremony should be held, but the Ministry of Rites used the excuse of the late emperor's recent passing to postpone it until next year, saying it was inappropriate to hold a celebration. Gu Huayuan even took the opportunity to submit a report to stop Xie Lin from issuing an imperial decree to title me as the empress. So, even though I lived in Kuning Palace and held the power to manage the imperial harem, I am still not the empress. Gu Huayuan went so far as to find fault during the early morning court, putting all the blame for the substitute marriage on me. He is clearly trying to give me a warning, to force me to step down of my own accord. After the young eunuch left, I went back to sleep as usual. Since I was put under confinement, I no longer had to wake up early to pay respects to the Empress Dowager, nor did I have to manage the tedious chores of the imperial harem, and I don't have to wear those troublesome court robes every day to handle annoying issues or receive noble ladies. In one word, it is heavenly. But the moment I woke up, my mood soured. Kui reported that my biological mother, the old matriarch of the Gu family, had already been waiting in the front hall for over an hour. She had declared that she would absolutely not leave today until she saw me. I frowned. Didn't the emperor send men to surround my palace, forbidding me from seeing any outsiders?
The old matriarch was anxious to the point of distraction. The guards let her in only after checking with Chief Manager Chang.
In this freezing cold weather, she really is determined. I stretched, got up, and had them heat water for a bath. I took a comfortable soak for half an hour before finally heading out. I knew the old lady's intentions only too well. Old man Gu had failed to force Xie Lin into retreat. He naturally sought a breakthrough through me. She had always loved teaming up with the old man in the past to force me to yield, running errands for him. It was only natural for her to be used as a tool this time. But unfortunately, they have miscalculated. I am no longer the foolish girl who desperately craved family affection. I won't be any easier to deal with than Xie Lin, nor will I let them hold anything over me again. When I strolled into the front parlor, the old maidservant by the old matriarch's side was berating the staff.
Why is this room so cold? Are you trying to freeze people to death? Has your master not woken up yet? Keeping an elder waiting for so long. Is this proper? If word gets out, this is unfilial.
The maid, being scolded, looked small, but she spoke with great confidence.
By imperial order, our mistress is not feeling well, and is not seeing anyone during her rest. In all matters, state rules come first. There is a clear hierarchy. According to your logic, does even the emperor have to address the old madam as an elder?
Bullshit, you wretched girl. How dare you frame me like that?
Just as the old maidservant was about to strike the girl, Quinong firmly grabbed her wrist.
How insolent! How dare you act so wildly in the Empress's chambers?
Quinong and Kui were both bought by me when I first arrived in the north. On the surface, they were maids, but they were actually sworn shadow guards, whose skills were no match for the Imperial Guard. The old woman did not feel much pain at this moment, but her bones were already shattered. This hand was bound to be useless. Once Quinong let go, the old maidservant took a step back, yet her arrogance did not diminish.
Second young mistress, do not blame me. I only acted out of distress for madam. If I have offended you, please forgive me.
The Gu family has been high officials for generations and values rules above all. As my mother's dowry maid, this old woman was a slick and cunning person. She dared to make a scene on my territory simply because she was used to bullying me in the past, thinking that with the old madam backing her up, she could still behave outrageously now without even raising my eyelids, and calmly ordered, Guards, drag this insolent, wicked servant out and beat her to death with clubs. Hearing the words, beat to death, the old woman's face instantly changed color. She knelt before the old madam, crying out about her grievance.
Madam, please see the truth. This old servant's loyalty is known to heaven.
My mother glared at me angrily.
Gu Juya, how dare you?
I did not pay her any attention either. I sat firmly in the seat of honor, leisurely sipping my tea. To kill a mere servant, what makes you think I wouldn't dare? If mother is displeased, you are more than welcome to ask the Empress Dowager to come and mediate. The Empress Dowager's headaches had recurred over the past few days. My mother had used the excuse of delivering medicine to run to her daily to lobby on Gu Yunshu's behalf. To avoid suspicion, the Empress Dowager had refused all visitors since the day before yesterday, accepting only the medicine. My mother coming here today to vent her anger on me was very likely due to this reason. My mother suddenly stood up.
And what if I do not agree today?
Then beat her right at the entrance so everyone can see the consequences of insubordination.
You.
Seeing that my mother was of no help, Nanny Huang immediately scrambled over to me on her hands and knees, slapping her own face.
It is I who am wrong. I deserve to die. Please spare my life, Your Highness.
Before she could finish her words, Kui dislocated her jaw, twisted her hands behind her back, and dragged her away like a little chicken. Unable to struggle, she could only wail and howl, looking just like a sow waiting for the slaughter. My mother turned pale, pointing at me with a trembling voice as she scolded.
Gu Zhiwei, you have truly lost all sense of propriety. You have already been cast aside by the Emperor. In the future, other than the Giyu family, who else can you rely on?
And what can I rely on the Gua family for? To rely on father to condemn me with his words? Or to rely on my elder sister to snatch away my position as empress?
There is more to this matter than meets the eye. I came here today specifically to make things clear to you. Both you and Yunshu are flesh of my flesh. How could I possibly be biased?
Has mother forgotten? Back then, when Yunshu refused to marry, it was you and father who used every means possible to force me to marry in her place. I stared at her intently. Gu Jie is my witness. He was not just a witness, but also the only person in the family who objected. He had yelled at our father.
The north is too cold. Eldest sister cannot bear it. But does second sister deserve to go and suffer?
Unfortunately, it was of no use. In the end, I still married in her place. On the day of the wedding, he carried me to the bridal sedan on his back. With tears in his eyes, he thumped his chest and promised,
Second sister, just bear with it for now. I will bring you back in the future.
Unfortunately, people's hearts change. The person who once wanted to protect me at all costs when he had nothing, now holds great power, yet is no longer willing to say a single word on my behalf. I sneered. Gu Jie is a high-ranking official now. He cannot ruin his bright future for Yunshu's sake. Even if he agreed, his in-laws would never allow it. The old servant's desperate cries for mercy echoed from outside the door, each shriek more miserable than the last, sounding like an evil spirit. My mother took a deep breath and stammered,
No matter how bad she is still my wet nurse. She watched the three of you grow up. How could you take her life over such a trivial matter?
If you cannot bear to watch, please leave first. The palace has its rules. If I do not punish her today, the censors will impeach the Gu family tomorrow for lax discipline.
If you do not speak of it, and I do not speak of it, who would know?
Regarding this matter today, the emperor will know. You do not actually believe everyone in this room is my person, do you? I said slowly. Our family has gone to great lengths to pave the way for my sister. Do you really want to lose what is important for the sake of an arrogant, wicked servant? The old servant took a full 100 strikes before she drew her last breath. At first, she pleaded loudly for mercy. Later, realizing she was doomed, she begged the old lady to take care of her family. After that, only blood-curdling screams remained until everything went silent. Mother listened to the whole thing with tears in her eyes. Her face was as pale as paper, making her look truly grieved for once. I finished my bowl of bird's nest soup, along with half a plate of rose cake. The moment the noise outside stopped, I immediately saw my guest out. You should head back early, Mother. Her mission had failed, and she had lost a trusted confidante in the process. Naturally, the old lady refused to leave. She dabbed the corners of her eyes with her handkerchief, weeping miserably.
Zhiwei. Sending Yunshu into the palace is all for your own good. The emperor is in his prime. In the future, he will surely have countless concubines. You have no children, nor do you have his favor. Even without Yunshu, you wouldn't be able to hold on to the position of empress anyway. The emperor can put you under house arrest today and banish you to the cold palace tomorrow. But Yunshu is different. She shares a deep bond with the emperor, and she is beautiful and intelligent. She was born to be the empress. I promise you today, if you are willing to step down voluntarily, Yunshu will beg the emperor to title you noble consort.
As if I'd need her to beg, I resisted the urge to roll my eyes, knit my brows, and pretended to consider the offer. Thinking I was tempted, Mother hastily declared,
If you have any other demands, just ask.
Any condition is fine.
As long as it is within my power.
I want money. I raised my face, beaming like a flower. If the Guillot family is willing to give me 100,000 taels of gold, I will immediately leave to become a nun at Baiyun Temple and never return to the palace. When Mother left, her face was darker than the bottom of a wok. It wasn't because she was unwilling to spend the money, but because our noble and pure Jew family simply didn't have it, let alone being willing to give it to me. In her eyes, I was someone she and father could manipulate at will, who should go through fire and water for Gu Yunshu, and whose death would only be expected. As she walked out, she didn't forget to point at my nose and curse.
Gu Zhiwei, you are so ungrateful. You will surely come to a miserable end.
I ignored her and went straight back to the inner room. My face felt cold, and in the end, I couldn't hold back the bitterness and hatred in my heart. I didn't sleep well that night, tossing and turning in dreams filled with scenes I should have forgotten long ago. When I suddenly woke up, the candle in the room had been lit. The dim light was quite reassuring. I pulled my hand out of Xie Lin's grasp and asked coldly, How does your majesty have the time to visit this cold palace? I thought he would snap back, but to my surprise, he was unusually quiet, without even a single disdainful snort. I only dared to curse him in my head. After all, we were no longer in the northern territory. Xie Lin noticed this, and his face, which had been tense all night, finally broke into a smile.
If you want to curse, just curse. I shall grant you immunity.
He gently brushed the hair away from my face and gave me a soft kiss. I tried to dodge, but he blocked my escape. With nowhere to hide, I had to bury my face in his chest. I'm tired.
Got it.
He held me tightly, his voice gentle.
Go to sleep.
Aren't you leaving?
I'm not leaving.
Can't you just make space?
I'm tired too.
I bit him. That is for looking for trouble and acting crazy for no reason.
You basically sold the Empress's seat, and I'm not even allowed to act crazy for once. You did it so blatantly, beating that old nanny to death. Wasn't it just hoping to be accused of being cruel and ruthless and unfit to be the Empress?
He was too calm. I didn't dare to argue back. I truly do not want to be the Empress.
You are my first wife. This is your duty.
The Guillot family counts on Yunshu to do it.
I am the Emperor.
Xie Lin tightened his grip around my waist.
According to your logic, Anyon can get into my bed.
I didn't make a sound. He snorted, nudged me, and said,
Do you want Gu Yunshu to enter the palace or not?
Your Majesty is the son of heaven. If your Majesty pleases, then this consort pleases. The hand on my waist let go. Xie Lin turned his back to me.
Fine, just fine.
Seeing him angry, I immediately regretted being so impulsive. Just as I was about to say some gentle words to soothe him, I heard him snort coldly again.
Go to sleep. Stop annoying me.
I sighed inwardly. I really wanted to ask him when he would finally let me go. He is the ruler of the world, and he must never break his word to a woman. But with the words on the tip of my tongue, I swallowed them back down in frustration. I had never been able to understand Xie Lin, nor could I tell his sincerity from pretense. But I had known long ago that once he decided on something, something, it could not be changed. Drowsily, I was pulled into his arms once again. Xie Lin leaned close to my ear, mumbling softly yet with absolute certainty.
Lily, trust me this once.
During the morning court session the next day, as expected, the officials accused me of being cruel and ruthless. Seeing that my mother had fallen ill from extreme shock, they added another charge of filial impiety. The old ministers who followed him to the capital from the north refused to back down. They pinned all the blame on Nanny Huang, harshly criticizing the chancellor's household for lack of discipline, which had spoiled such an insolent and wicked servant. The imperial court was in complete chaos. The newly appointed Grand Imperial Censor, Zheng Yuan, stepped in to mediate. He stated bluntly that this was all because the imperial harem lacked a master, resulting in a lack of strict discipline. He proposed that Xie Lin should quickly crown a queen to stabilize the harem and secure the realm. The grand hall fell silent for a brief moment. The veteran officials of the north seized the opportunity and stepped forward, one after another. They knelt and begged Xie Lin to crown me empress, even pulling out letters from the common people, intending to use the popular support I had built up in the north to shut up Gu Huayuan and his faction once and for all. But Old Man Gu and his group still refused to back down. Stubbornly clinging to their previous excuses, the two sides started bickering fiercely once again. Old Man Gu watched the drama unfold with a cold, detached look. Zheng Yuan came up with a compromise that would satisfy both sides. He suggested that Xie Lin crown me as queen to appease the public, and at the same time, noble Gu Yunshu as noble consort, to preserve the mutual respect between ruler and subject. This time, no one objected further, including Xie Lin. After I finished my meal, the young eunuch serving under head eunuch Chang arrived again. This time, he didn't tell me to finish everything, but repeatedly urged me to eat, saying Xie Lin had been in a gloomy mood lately and had no appetite for lunch, so he bestowed all of it upon me. There were 3 large food boxes. Dishes and bowls covered the entire table. Aside from braised shark fin in yellow sauce, longjing shrimp, and other common imperial dishes, there was also a northern-style sweet soup, which was newly developed by the chef, peach gum bird's nest, and stewed white pear with lotus seeds. The young eunuch specifically told me that His Majesty named the dishes himself. The first one is called Keeping Only One Spring Branch, meaning that out of the 3,000 beauties in the imperial harem, he only wishes to keep you, his sole flower. The second one is named
A Promise to Shine Through the Ages, which means a sovereign's word is absolute, promising to accompany you year after year. His Majesty truly dotes on you, madam.
I secretly criticized the names for being melodramatic and the flavors for being peculiar, but since they were imperial rewards, I could only heap on praises. The young eunuch was delighted, exclaiming,
Knowing you enjoy them, madam, His Majesty will surely be very pleased.
I smiled along. If His Majesty is happy, then I am happy too. But soon, I couldn't find any joy. Although Xie Lin didn't refuse to title Gu Yunshu as a consort, he delayed issuing the imperial decree. 3 days later, Old Man Gu suddenly submitted a petition, claiming that my mother was critically ill and missed her daughter terribly, begging Xie Lin to approve my return home for a visit. Since I married into the north, I hadn't seen my family for a full 6 years. This request didn't seem unreasonable, but anyone with a discerning eye could see he wanted to use me as leverage to force Xie Lin to back down. Yet, Xie Lin couldn't easily decline, and word was sent down immediately. Kunin asked me how to handle this dangerous situation.
This trip is highly dangerous. I'm afraid they might be driven to desperation.
I knew in my heart that entering the Prime Minister's estate boded ill. After all, there was no simpler or more effortless solution than my death. I could never understand why Old Man Gu and my mother wanted to target me like this, rather than calling it favoritism. It was more like utter hatred. It seemed as though they all wished me dead. I told Kui to bring out all my swords, daggers, and hidden weapons. My father and mother didn't know that. After marrying Xie Lin, I have been practicing martial arts. At first, I practiced with my bodyguards. When Xie Lin saw this, he personally guided me. I am no master, but it is enough for self-defense. As long as they dare to use underhanded means, I will dare to slaughter this entire family. Ultimately, I did not make it home. The Empress Dowager had a nightmare that night, saying the late emperor appeared in her dream, warning that a severe snow disaster might strike the south, causing many casualties, and telling her to go in person to Lingyan Temple to pray for blessings. After discussing with Xie Lin, the Empress Dowager decided to take all noblewomen of high rank in the capital, along with her to show sincerity as Xie Lin's wife. I was naturally on the list of those accompanying her. This was official business, not to mention the old lady wasn't dead yet. Even if she had breathed her last, it couldn't have stopped me. Besides, the Empress Dowager also asked Gu Yunshu to accompany her, so Old Man Gu had no way to argue. After all, everyone knew The Empress Dowager had not been favored when she was empress. The late emperor had only kept her secure in the empress's position to maintain a political balance. She also had no love for the late emperor and had very little contact with any of the princes. After Xie Lin ascended the throne, she secluded herself in Yong'an Palace, genuinely staying out of all affairs. Her sudden attempt to cozy up to the Zhiwei family this time was speculated by everyone to be related to her elder brother, the Marquis of Zhenan. After all, the judge in that embezzlement case was a student of Gu Huayuan. Whether he would be dismissed or exiled still needed to be negotiated. Since that night, Xie Lin and I had not seen each other for several days again. Before setting off, I went to the Grand Hall to bid farewell as per protocol. Because he was discussing matters with his ministers, I stood outside for nearly 2 hours and was still barred from entering the gate. Yet the moment I left, Yunshu followed right in. Though it was at the Empress Dowager's bidding, it was still a harsh slap to my face. No wonder, the gossip said, Xie Lin had refused to yield. Regardless of who his primary wife was, he just didn't want to bear the infamy of abandoning his original wife and breaking his word. He wanted to be a wise ruler, recorded favorably in history books and praised by the common people. I have understood this for a long time, and I thought I was mentally prepared for it, but when the reality was actually before my eyes, I still couldn't help but burn with anger. Lingyan Temple was quite far from the imperial palace. Even on a fast horse, it would take 2 hours, let alone with this slow dragging motorcade. We set off early in the morning and didn't arrive until after dark. Feeling sorry that the noble ladies were exhausted from the carriage ride, the Empress Dowager let everyone return to their rooms to eat and rest, postponing the Buddhist worship ceremony until tomorrow. The guest rooms had been arranged beforehand. By right, I should have stayed next to the Empress Dowager, but she assigned the closest courtyard to Yunshu. Using the excuse of preferring peace and quiet, she banished me outside the imperial villa to stay with the other noble ladies. The way everyone looked at me became a bit strange. Yunshu even went out of her way to send a messenger to mock me, saying I would never be able to defeat her in this lifetime. Yi and Nong were stomping their feet in anger and wanted to go demand an explanation, but I stopped them and instructed them to proceed according to our original plan. I slipped away secretly under the cover of darkness. I knew very well in my heart that Xie Lin would never just wait around and let the Gui family order him about as they pleased. This trip to Lingyan Temple would definitely bring many changes, and he would absolutely strike back. Yet, I was still determined to run away. He would strike back solely because he was Xie Lin, the high and mighty emperor on the dragon throne. Whether I, Zhiwei, became the empress or not could not change this set-in-stone reality. I trusted him, but I also didn't dare to trust him completely to ensure that nothing went wrong. The next day, Nong disguised herself as me to attend the scripture chanting. Her body shape was very similar to mine, and with a bit of makeup and a veil, ordinary people couldn't tell us apart at all. After all, who would have guessed that the soon-to-be empress would run away? Xie Lin is the emperor. It is only natural for him to have a harem full of concubines and a crowd of beautiful women. What difference would adding one Yunshu make? According to our original plan, Nong was supposed to find an opportunity to slip away after listening to the scriptures, but Kui and I waited at the pier for a whole day and night, and there was still no sign of her. Kui urged me to flee first, saying the emperor surely wouldn't do anything fatal to her and Nong. I understood what she left unsaid. Under this sky, the only ones left whom Xie Lin could use as leverage to threaten me were the two of them. As for the Gi Yu family, the rest of them were probably eagerly hoping that I would die out there. Moreover, back when we were in the north, Nong had once saved Xie Lin's life. With the two of them staying by the emperor's side, it would definitely be much safer than following me. Concealing my identity, I fled all the way toward the south. After fleeing for a full 2 months, I finally settled down in a remote border town. I rented a small courtyard to live in by myself, claiming to the outside world that my husband had gone to join the army. To avoid detection, other than hiring a mute elderly woman to do some heavy chores, I didn't employ anyone else to serve me, although I had to do everything, big and small, myself. Life was quite comfortable and peaceful. After about 3 months, news from the capital began to trickle in. Some people gossiped about what happened at Lingyan Temple, saying the Empress Dowager and the Empress's sincerity had moved the heavens, bringing favorable weather right after the Buddhist service was completed. Some praised the Empress for her kind heart, saying she loved the people as her own children, and adamantly refused to hold a lavish grand ceremony, donating all the gold and silver saved to schools in remote areas, specifically to sponsor poor scholars in realizing their grand dreams of becoming officials. Others said the emperor and the empress shared a deep affection, and that the emperor had decreed he would never take any more concubines until the empress gave birth to a legitimate son. Thanks to this Empress Giyu, the power and status of the Giyu family suddenly skyrocketed to the absolute peak. But just as everyone was guessing whether maternal relatives would dominate the court in the future, the empress's father, Chancellor Giyu, suddenly died a sudden death. There were also rumors that after the ritual at Lingyan Temple, the old matriarch of the Giyu family suddenly went mad, hacked her eldest daughter to death with her own hands, and finally set a fire to burn herself to death as well. Having lost both his wife and his beloved daughter in quick succession, Old Man Gu fell bedridden and could no longer get up. During this period of severe illness, he was even reported by his own son, Gu Ji, who accused him of being the mastermind behind the massive Liangjia embezzlement case. So that when Xie Lin instigated the Marquis of Jenin to jump into the fire back then, it was purely to lure these old foxes out. Not only was the solid evidence of embezzlement firmly grasped, but it was also uncovered that to help Shi Jua steal the throne, Old Man Gu had secretly colluded with the Miao people in the south. This time, Xie Lin completely uprooted Old Man Giyu. Not only did he intimidate all the wealthy clans, but he also swept away the remaining forces that the Lu family had buried in the imperial court. After such a massive upheaval, the entire Jiyu clan was completely and severely weakened. Fortunately, they had Empress Gu and the official Guji holding things down at the top, which kept them from suffering complete ruin. I didn't try to figure out how many of these rumors were actually true, nor did I think Xie Lin's swift and decisive actions were anything to be surprised about. The only thing I couldn't understand was the old matriarch going mad. How could she bear to hack Gu Yunshu to death with her own hands? That girl was the darling she held in the palm of her hand. Compared to Gu Yunshu, not only was I just a worthless stone, but even her own son, Gu Ji, was merely a stepping stone for others to trample on. Right. And then there is that guy, Gu Ji. How could he suddenly stab his father in the back? What tangible benefits could he possibly gain from doing this? Could it really be for the sake of placing justice above family? I stared intently at the flickering candle flame. Suddenly, a bold idea popped into my mind. Could it be that Gu Jie had already aligned himself with Xie Lin? Perhaps because, in this courtyard, no men or children had been seen for a long time. The identity I had fabricated to the neighbors gradually shifted from the wife of a soldier on active duty to a pitiful widow whose husband had died on the battlefield. Auntie Fan next door was a warm-hearted woman. She usually loved to help out with small chores, and she loved playing matchmaker even more. Seeing me all alone, and finding it quite pitiful, she eagerly tried to introduce her nephew to me as a suitor.
My nephew studied at a private school and works as a bookkeeper at Falai restaurant. He is very fair and clean-cut, but his parents passed away early, leaving a younger brother and 2 younger sisters who depend on him to make a living. Ha ha ha. But he is willing to marrying into his wife's family. To marry into your family in the future. The first child you two have, boy or girl, will take your surname Chin.
Auntie Fan was smooth-tongued and even quicker with her actions. She wasn't discouraged after I politely declined and simply dragged the young man, Fanyu, straight into my courtyard to set us up on a blind date. The young man was indeed very handsome, with bright eyes and clean features, carrying the refreshing air of a scholar. He also spoke very politely, just as Auntie Fan had said with a sigh.
If his parents hadn't died so early, this boy would have definitely passed the civil exams and become a high official.
From that day on, young Fan Yu would come over to visit me in the courtyard every few days. He didn't usually talk much, but he was incredibly quick and diligent with his chores. Every time he visited, he would take the initiative to help with the heavy lifting, and he would also bring me a few pieces of the delicious pastries made at the restaurant. Although I politely refused him several times, he was stubborn and kept coming back as regular as clockwork. I really didn't know what to do with him, so I had the mute old lady to take a few bolts of fine fabric to Auntie Fan as a return gift. I even specifically picked bright, eye-catching colors. Auntie Fan accepted them happily and turned right around to make beautiful new clothes for her daughter-in-law and Fanyu's 2 sisters. This afternoon, Fanyu came to the yard again to help weed. He brought along a few freshly picked white pear blossoms for me. He explained that a wealthy boss had arrived at the tavern, specifically requesting that the guest room must have a vase filled with pear blossoms every day. The keeper gave him this lucrative task of sourcing them because he bought such a large quantity. The old flower farmer threw in a few extra stems for free.
If sister-in-law Chin really likes these flowers, in the future we can Personally, plant a flowering willow tree in the yard.
Hearing him say this, my eyes instantly welled up with tears. I couldn't help but picture Xie Lin in my mind. Back then, in the prince's grand mansion in the north, the yards were planted all over with white pear trees. During peak blooming season, the newly formed small blossoms were crystal white, looking like a thin layer of frost with a gentle breeze. Petals drifted across the sky like heavy snow, and a delightful subtle fragrance filled the air. Back then, Xie Lin always loved to poke my nose and tease me.
Since you like these pear blossoms so much, why don't I just call you Little Pear from now on?
His voice still echoed in my ears, but the people and things had long since changed. Seeing my tears fall pattering down, Fan Yu completely misunderstood. Just as he reached out to wipe my tears, he flusteredly pulled his hand back. He stammered and called out Lady Qin once more, when suddenly, the large wooden gate of the yard was violently kicked open with a loud bang. Fan Yu and I turned our heads at the same time, only to see Xie Lin with a dark, thundering face, aggressively charging toward the two of us, with giant, menacing strides.
I'm still drawing breath. What makes you think you have any right to plant flowers here? Now get the hell out of here.
Even though he was wearing only simple, ordinary clothes, it couldn't hide the overbearing, imperial aura. The overbearing, regal aura instilled by his royal upbringing. Fan Yu took an instinctive step back in fear, but he still summoned up his courage.
Who on earth are you?
Xie Lin swept a cold glance over me, his gaze as sharp and piercing as an icicle.
I am her husband, the husband who died on the battlefield.
I felt completely dazed, as if I were in a dream, and everything felt completely surreal. I had long forgotten about Fan Yu beside me. At this very moment, my mind was filled with nothing but Xie Lin's face. How on earth did he find his way to this middle of nowhere? Did he come all this way just to drag me back? Or is he planning to kill me with one of his swords? I watched as Xie Lin strode right up to me, staring down at me like he was interrogating a thief, his eyes a chaotic mess, and the expression on his face was impossible to read. My mind was a chaotic jumble. I was completely on the verge of a breakdown, wanting to turn and run, and another part wanted to scream out loud, but my body felt as heavy as lead and refused to cooperate. I could only stand there foolishly, frozen like a wooden post, not daring to move an inch. I was terrified to the absolute extreme. I was afraid he would take my life, and equally afraid he would pin me down and beat me mercilessly. Then Xie Lin's hands trembled as he cupped my face. In his bloodshot eyes, a tear suddenly rolled down, landing right on my cold cheek.
Why?
He closed his eyes in pain and pressed his forehead firmly against mine, forcing the words out one by one. It seemed to take immense effort, and by the end, his voice was completely hoarse, leaving nothing but a faint, breathless whisper. But in my heart, I understood it all. What he was actually asking was,
why on earth won't you just believe me?
Because I am someone who has died once and come back to life. In my past life, I knew Xie Lin from a very early age. He was the son of Consort Zhao, the old emperor's favorite. He was intelligent and exceptionally talented. Although he hadn't been officially named heir apparent, he was highly regarded by the old emperor. At just 15, he was given special permission to train at the Ministry of Revenue and was allowed to associate with prestigious officials. His betrothal to Yunshu as infants was arranged by Consort Zhao during the Lantern Festival that year. The 7-year-old Xie Lin sneaked out of the palace and was injured by a passing carriage. Guji's birth mother, concubine Qin, passed by and saved him, but later, all the credit went to Yunshu, making her the prospective princess of Jin, while concubine Qin drowned after falling into the lotus pond in the middle of the night. Zhiwei was only 2 years old then. I was 4, and I cried even harder than he did. From then on, no one ever treated us as gently as concubine Qin did. At Yunshu's coming-of-age banquet, I saw the now-grown Xie Lin. The 17-year-old prince had delicate, handsome features like finely carved jade. His demeanor was as cold and elegant as melting snow, like a gentle breeze, like the bright moon. He looked just like an immortal, completely untouched by the dust of the mortal world. An indescribable joy suddenly welled up in my heart. The pear blossom tree concubine Qin planted for me flashed through my mind. She said,
"When our Zhiwei grows up, she will surely be like a pear blossom, graceful and refined, elegant and beautiful."
I secretly loved the 17-year-old Xie Lin. He was remarkably talented. He hid his identity to take the imperial examination and actually placed 3rd, earning the title of Tanhua. He was very kind-hearted. Before the results were posted, he admitted his wrongdoing to the emperor and vacated the third-place spot, allowing the scholars to move up in rank, ensuring no one suffered a loss. Just because of his temporary playfulness, every winter, he would send warm clothes and food to the orphanage, and he even saved poor people who were bullied by thugs. The more good deeds I heard about him, the more I liked him, but because he was Gu Yunshu's fiancé, I didn't dare show even a hint of admiration. From childhood to adulthood, as long as Gu Yunshu took a liking to something, it had to belong to her. If I took a liking to it too, in the eyes of the old madam, I was just being low-born and shameless. Whenever I showed that I cherished anything, Gu Yunshu would absolutely do everything she could to snatch it away, and only when she was in a good mood would she toss it back to me, as if charity to a beggar. And not only did I have to accept it, but I also had to accept it with endless gratitude. I had cried and made a fuss when I was little, but it only earned me the old madam's cold stares and beatings. Old Nanny Huang told me over and over again that none of it was the mistress's fault.
The old madam and the master grew up together, and they loved each other deeply. If she hadn't been injured when giving birth to you, leaving her completely unable to bear more children, how could concubine Qin have ever entered the household and ruined her reputation of loving only one person in this lifetime? My lady was born when the old madam and the master's love was at its peak. The old madam doting on her is her way of doting on herself. Besides, second young lady, your fate is too harsh. If the old madam gets too close to you, it will shorten her lifespan. She was afraid you would carry the infamy of bringing death to your own mother, which is why she hardened her heart to neglect you.
Filled with deep guilt, I suddenly lost all strength to resist. One wrong step led to another, and I gradually ended up as a pawn in the hands of the old madam and father, Gu, to be molded and ordered around as they pleased, serving as a stepping stone for Gu Yunshu. The ironic thing was, leaving aside concubine Qin and Gu Jie, the only person who was genuinely good to me in my past life was Xie Lin. According to custom, once Gu Yunshu turned 15, the two of them were supposed to marry. However, Xie Lin suddenly fell gravely ill, and the wedding date was postponed for nearly a year. Yet, he was extremely good to Gu Yunshu. Not only did he often visit the Gu Yu family, but he also gave her valuable gifts. Gu Jie and I benefited from this as well. When I turned 15, he gave me an extremely valuable antique zither. Although it was not as expensive as Gu Yunshu's jade ruyi, it was very rare. This made Gu Yunshu very unhappy. She originally intended to smash it, but the gift had already been publicly acknowledged, and consort Zhao had publicly mentioned inviting me to the palace to play it sometime. To appease Gu Yunshu and make her happy, the old lady locked the zither away in the main storehouse and forbade me from touching it. It wasn't until I got married later that she, in Gu Yunshu's name, stuffed it into my dowry. During my 5 years married into the Lu family, I was busy managing the household and accounts every day, rarely finding time to play the zither, but I made it a habit to wipe it clean every day, as if as long as it remained bright and new, there was still something to look forward to in my life. Later, when Lu Zhan's younger sister was to be married, she insisted on taking it with her. When I refused, they tried to take it by force. I smashed the zither with my own hands, only to discover a hidden compartment inside. Inside, a pear blossom hairpin was hidden. It had a gold base, petals carved from Hetian jade, and gemstones as the flower's center. They were all top-grade materials, yet the craftsmanship was quite ordinary. Recalling what concubine Qin had once said, I wept hysterically on the spot. By then, Xie Lin had long been exiled to the far north. Only 2 months after his marriage to Gu Yunshu, consort Zhao was reported for having an affair in her early years. That man had been a vanguard soldier under consort Zhao's father and died on the battlefield after she entered the palace. But old acquaintances from the military camp all said that Xie Lin bore a 70 to 80% resemblance to that man. The old emperor intended to investigate to the end, but consort Zhao took poison and died beforehand, leaving a letter bitterly cursing the emperor for taking her by force. Furious, the old emperor not only executed the entire Zhao family, but also banished Xie Lin to the north. When Xie Lin left the capital, Gu Yunshu absolutely refused to go with him, so my father used filial piety as an excuse and managed to trick the emperor into letting him stay in the capital first. Later, she hooked up with Xi Zhuo and secretly got pregnant. She then divorced Xie Lin and became the prince's mistress. After Xi Zhuo became the emperor, my father used his contribution of supporting the coronation to secure the position of noble noble consort for her to intentionally spite Xie Lin. Zhiwei not only broadcasted this to the entire world, but also had people write a play about Yunshu throwing herself at him to be his mistress. But Xie Lin had no reaction to this, continuing to live as a down-and-out prince in the north. Zhiwei was a lecher, with countless beautiful women in his harem. Although Yunshu became the noble consort, she couldn't avoid being jealous and fighting with the new concubines. At that time, I was already betrothed to young master Enyangbo because Enyangbo fell ill and died. The wedding date was postponed. To suck up to Empress Dowager Lu, Yunshu demanded that the old lady marry me to Lu Zhan as his second wife. Even though the old lady knew Lu Zhan's previous wife had hanged herself, she agreed to the marriage anyway. For this matter, my father was willing to offend the Enyangbo family. I absolutely refused to do it. After running away, I was forcibly dragged back. They used family affection and Zhiwei as leverage to force me to bow my head and accept my fate. To stop this from happening, Zhiwei took 80 lashes and was beaten until he had only half a breath left. By the time his wounds healed and he could walk, I had already married into the Lu family. He came to see me, weeping hysterically. Afterward, he abandoned his scholarly pursuits and joined the army. He urged me to endure for the time being, saying that once he achieved fame and success, no one would dare to bully me again. But I didn't get to wait, as Guji passed away 6 months later. He fell off a cliff and met an extremely tragic and pitiful end, even bearing the infamy of being overly ambitious and reckless. Hearing the devastating news broke my health, and I was never able to get pregnant again. When I first married into the Lu family, I once thought fate had finally treated me kindly for once. Although I was forced into it and had no choice, it felt like a blessing in disguise. Lu Zhan was a military officer. Not only was he handsome and elegant, but he was also gentle and reasonable. Even though I had not given birth after 3 years in the manor, he never once blamed me. He not only sought out famous doctors to nurse my health, but also stood up to Madame Lu on my behalf many times. Even his own sister, whom he had always pampered the most, was not as important as I was. Everyone in the capital rumored that Lu doted on his consort to the extreme. For her sake, he even ignored the duty of carrying on the family line, fearing his consort would be unhappy. He didn't even take any concubines or bedchamber maids. Because of these rumors, I was summoned to the palace by Empress Dowager Lu and reprimanded several times. Once, she punished me by making me stand in the freezing wind for 6 hours. When I left the palace, it was already late into the night, and I ran into Yunshu. She sat tall inside her carriage, looking down at me from above. With a playful look on her bright and beautiful face, she said,
"My dear sister, you really found yourself a peerless, wonderful husband. Hayes, you are truly naive."
I did not understand the deep meaning behind her words, but I felt very afraid. Yunshu's malice never came out of nowhere. A month later, I understood everything. The fact that Lu Zhan kept male actors outside was discovered, and it instantly became the talk of the town. I became the biggest laughingstock in the entire capital. The single-minded devotion and favoritism I had believed in were nothing more than excuses to cover up his homosexual desires. Once the pretense was shattered, Lu Zhan stopped acting altogether. He openly kept male lovers in his courtyard. I begged for a divorce, but not only did he and the Lu family object, even Guayuan and Madame Zhu tried to stop me. It was only then that I learned Lu Zhan's first wife passed away in despair back then because of this very matter. The Lu family not only blocked all news of it, but also smeared her reputation, claiming she was unfaithful and committed suicide out of guilt. Yunshu knew this full well, yet for her own selfish interests, she pushed me into this abyss. I was locked away in a side room by Lu Zhan. Every day, except for the elderly woman who delivered meals, I saw no one else. I tried all kinds of ways to escape, but all of them ended in failure. Left with no choice, I chose to go on a hunger strike. This infuriated Lu Zhan. If I refused to swallow, he sent people to force the food down my throat. They must have added drugs to it. As my mind gradually began to grow hazy, I often recalled the years of my childhood spent with Aunt Chin, and remembered Guji as well as Xie Lin. I reminisced about him at 17 and that old, broken zither. In the middle of one night, the courtyard gate was suddenly kicked open. Lady Lu burst inside with a group of people and without a word, dragged me to the front hall. Lu Zhan was actually dead. It turned out Xie Lin had been planning his rebellion for a long time, and his momentum was unstoppable. In just 3 months, he captured 10 cities in a row and advanced his troops to the capital. The Lu father and son were ordered to march out and meet the enemy, and neither returned. The Duke of Zhiwei died a gruesome death on the battlefield, and Lu Zhan was severely punished by Xie Lin, leaving not even a trace of ashes behind. Only after arriving at the Lu manor did I learn that noble consort Zhao had been set up by the Empress Dowager back then? No wonder Xie Lin hated the Lu family so intensely. I voluntarily asked to depart with Lu John, begging Lady Lu to let me see Lady Ju one last time. Lady Ju arrived on time.
Do you have any final wishes? I will absolutely make sure they are fulfilled.
I stared at her and asked, since mother resents me so much, why didn't you just get rid of me back then? Lady Ju's expression froze, and only after a long silence did she mutter,
I didn't hate you that much. It is just...
Just what? She didn't explain, but said instead,
It is just as well that you are leaving. With your current reputation, staying behind would only mean living a lonely life. Once you are gone, Yunshu will have an easier time in the palace.
I knelt to pour her tea, treating it as a way to repay my mother for raising me. The tea was laced with a sleeping potion. In the blink of an eye, Lady Ju fell unconscious. I quickly swapped clothes with her and disguised myself to look like her. This was easy. Although Lady Ju was over 40, she maintained her youth well. Her appearance and figure were not much different from when she was young. Moreover, I looked very much like her because she was about to lose her beloved daughter. It was only natural to veil her face, to hide her red, swollen eyes. I called the servants into the room and watched them closely as they put Lady Ju into the wooden coffin prepared for me. Don't leave any guards in the front hall tonight, lest she wake up and make a scene. The girl had a hard life. Let her go in peace. With a light veil covering my face, no one noticed the curl of my lips. Nanny Huang was the first to notice my flaw. Inside the carriage, just as she was about to call for help, I pressed a pear blossom hairpin firmly against her throat. I never planned to survive, but I didn't want to die alone. I had to return to the Gu residence to deal with Gu Huayuan. In the end, I didn't get my wish. Because Xie Lin's army entered the city, I saw him looking utterly exhausted, dragging a limp, mud-like Gu Huayuan, charging on horseback toward the palace. The commoners around me were fleeing in chaos. I wanted to chase after him, but I was simply too exhausted. I fell after taking only a few steps. I could only hear his roars coming closer from afar.
Capture Zhiwei alive. Gu Yunshu shall not be spared. Handle it immediately.
Many people stepped over my body. I kept coughing, exhausting what little strength I had left to crawl to the corner. I looked toward the imperial palace. The last thing I saw before closing my eyes was Xie Lin, that 17-year-old, bright and gentle young prince. I fell into an endless dream. In the dream, Xie Lin personally punished Gu Yunshu, exposing him to public humiliation before dumping him by the wasteland. 3 days later, the outside world rumored that his resentment stemmed from love, prompting him to plot the uprising, all for the sake of a beautiful woman. Yet, he did not budge. Zhiwei merely kept him under house arrest. He must have despised the Lu family to the core. Upon entering the city, the first place he went was the Lu manor. Regrettably, Madame Lu had set a fire in advance. Except for a few guards, most perished in the sea of flames. Xie Lin rushed into the fire, only to salvage a half-charred memorial tablet. Furious, he tied Gu Huayuan behind his horse. After Xie Lin became emperor, he changed the era name to Yongwei. He was a wise and diligent ruler, but also a ruthless and iron-fisted leader. He severely punished many people, anyone related to the Lu or Jiyu families, regardless of relation, status, or rank, was brought to justice. He planted pear trees all over the inner courtyard. He took no concubines and sought no pleasures. In his spare time, he carved jade. His craftsmanship was superb. Every accessory he carved was exquisitely beautiful, especially that kingfisher pear flower hairpin, which was 100 times more magnificent than the one in the love token box. He said to Chang Sheng,
If I had taken her with me when I left the capital, she wouldn't have lost her life. I ruined everything, so I deserve to be alone.
At that moment, it suddenly hit me. It turned out he really still couldn't forget Gu Yunshu. It seems that resentment born of changing fortunes is indeed terrifying. I shuddered in shock and suddenly opened my eyes. I returned to the spring when I was 13 years old. Gu Yunshu fell into the water and was frightened. Full of affection, Madame Ju took me to Lingyan Temple to pray for her safety. To show her sincerity, Madame Ju forced me to kowtow all the way up the mountain. In my past life, I fainted from exhaustion, but Madame Ju insisted I was faking illness and punished me by making me kneel before the ancestral tablets for 3 days. This time, before Madame Ju could speak, I pestered her to join me in the kowtowing as we climbed up to the temple gate so as to accumulate blessings for Gu Yunshu. As a result, Madame Ju scolded me for acting up, left me at the foot of the mountain, and ran off on her own. I was actually left in peace, ignoring the older women trying to stop me. I climbed a tree to have some fun. The feeling of living living life over again is truly wonderful. In this life, I will absolutely never walk down my former path again. In this lifetime, quite a few things have changed. Xie Lin did not attend Gu Yunshu's coming-of-age banquet, nor did he bestow a jade ruyi on her. Gu Yunshu threw a massive fit, and both Gu Huayuan and Madame Ju lost face. Although noble consort Zhao's secret affair was not exposed, she still passed away from illness in the end. Her father handed over his military tally, resigned from office, and led his entire family to retreat to their old home in Yuyang. The younger son, who was the vice minister of the Ministry of Personnel, also volunteered to be stationed elsewhere and came to see me. Xie Lin flew into a rage because of this matter. Not only did he smash up the prince's estate, but he also secretly cursed the emperor for being ungrateful. The emperor was furious and placed him under house arrest. Xie Lin clamored to get married, his words dripping with the arrogance of having the Guyu family's backing. Frightened, Gu Huayuan hurriedly submitted a memorial to clear himself of any connection. After much calculation, the emperor finally ordered him to be exiled to the northern border and permitted him to marry a daughter of the Guyu family. It was precisely this phrase, daughter of the Guyu family, that gave Gu Huayuan and Madame Ju the opportunity to execute a bait and switch. Gu Yunshu is not the only daughter of the Guyu family. Once the imperial decree was issued, I knew what my fate would be. But back then, I actually had another choice. I could have run away. I could have changed my name and wandered from place to place. Yet, I didn't. I had no money. In times like these, what would happen to a poor, penniless girl with no one to turn to? It wasn't hard to guess, so I chose to gamble again. I gambled that Xie Lin wasn't entirely sick of the Guyu family yet, and that he hadn't developed a desire for revenge against Gu Yunshu. His innate kindness was still there, so surely he wouldn't mistreat me too badly. Once I used my status as consort Jing to save up enough travel money, I could slip away then. I didn't dare reveal this plan to anyone, keeping it a secret even from Gu Jie. Lady Ju and Gu Huayuan worried I might back out at the last minute, so they secretly caused trouble for me before the wedding. As I was leaving the house, I leaned on Gu Ji's back. Using all my strength, I managed to raise my hand and cover his face. With eyes full of tears, Guji choked out,
"Sister, you want me to make something of myself. I will definitely bring you back home."
I declined, saying, Aji, focus on your studies. Do not go to the military camp. On the night of the wedding, the room was filled with the glow of red wedding candles, their flames flickering wildly. When Xie Lin entered the room, just as the festive music outside was dying down, I was already nodding off from exhaustion. But how could I dare to sleep? The moment his foot crossed the threshold, I lifted the red veil myself and quickly knelt down. As soon as I was down, I began to fake cry, shifting all the blame for the bride, swap onto the Guyu family. My elder sister thought the north was too cold, and my parents couldn't bear to see her suffer. So they drugged me with wine and forced me into the bridal sedan. If your highness is very angry, you can send me back home. Please do not hurt me. And do not beat me. I fake cried for a long while but heard no reaction. I had no choice but to brace myself and look up. Who would have thought I would look right into a pair of smiling eyes? Xie Lin quickly helped me up and said, quite unexpectedly,
I already guessed it was you.
I stared at him in astonishment.
There is a dark mole on the back of your hand. I recognized it.
These words left me with no way to argue. Xie Lin handed over the nuptial wine.
I never thought much of Gu Yunshu anyway. The Gu family sending you instead played right into my hands. I do not wish to spend my whole life in the north. Drink this cup, and we shall be partners. You help me build a great empire, and I will ensure you get your heart's desire in the future.
These are things I'm not worthy of hearing. I hurriedly covered both ears, but Xie Lin took hold of my hands. His eyes were burning with passion.
My princess, are you willing to stand by my side and share in the glory?
At a moment like this, there was no way I could shake my head. That night, we slept in the same bed, bickering until the break of dawn. From then on, although we shared the same room, we never shared the same blanket again. Yet Xie Lin would still come to eat with me every day, chatting with me about government affairs and daily chores, and occasionally taking me out for walks. We would change into plain clothes to inspect the streets and markets. 2 years flew by, in the blink of an eye. The cowardly prince persona Xie Lin put on fooled everyone, while the shops under my control opened one after another, doing business across the entire country. With a constant stream of customers, the money we earned flowed in like water. The courtyard of the prince's mansion at the border was planted with large pear trees. During the blooming season, they were fragrant and a blanket of white, as if snow had been falling all night. I was extremely satisfied with our partnership. Sometimes I even thought, if we could spend our whole lives like this, it wouldn't be so bad. Until one day, Xie Lin suddenly said, our relationship needed to go a step further. We needed a stronger foundation. to ensure neither would betray or abandon the other. I was puzzled. How could we go any further? The corners of Xie Lin's mouth curved up. He cupped the back of my head, lowered his head, and kissed me.
Let us consummate our marriage, my princess.
During my 5 years in the north, I lived happily. I grew fond of Xie Lin and was willing to spend my life with him. But deep down, I didn't dare to fully give him my heart. I truly couldn't see through him. In my past life, he was clearly deeply in love with Yunshu. He had once been a gentle and elegant gentleman, as well as a decisive, iron-fisted emperor. Yet neither of those sides resembled the person I saw before me now. He showed me meticulous care and consideration, yet he also let me see the calculating nature hidden in his bones. I didn't dare to gamble. People's hearts are fickle. I secretly drank contraceptive soup. After Xie Lin found out, he threw a major tantrum right then and there. We ignored each other for 3 days. Just as I was thinking of backing down and apologizing, he came around on his own.
This is actually better. Without an heir, the person on the throne will feel more at ease. My princess thinks more deeply and further ahead than I do.
Right after that, the task of drinking the bitter medicine was transferred to him. He said cutting it off at the root was the safest way of all. But my suspicions only deepened. A partner who didn't even care about having descendants. If we ever truly fell out, it would be hard to expect him to care about old times. The moment Xie Lin took action, he asked me,
If I fail, what are your plans, princess?
I spun a lie. I would like to accompany you, your highness. He pursed his lips and smiled, bending down to wrap his arms around me.
If it ever comes to that, just run. Find a remote little town and live comfortably for the rest of your life. If you remarry, then don't bother visiting my grave to burn incense.
I bit my lip hard, being uncharacteristically honest for once. Your highness will surely achieve great things. Xie Lin kissed my forehead.
If I deal with the Zhiwei family in the future, will you blame me?
My heart suddenly clenched in pain. At the end of the day, in his heart, he still cared about the marriage substitution. I forced a smile. Just as I was about to reply, his fingertips pressed against my lips.
Trust me this once. I will make sure all your wishes come true.
In the end, I couldn't bring myself to trust him. That day, right after leaving the palace, Chang Sheng was ordered to deliver a vanity box. The item placed inside was identical to the pear blossom hairpin from my past life's old affection. It had a pure gold frame, Hedian nephrite carved into petals, and precious stones as the stamen. The craftsmanship was exquisite to the extreme, looking as if it were handmade by a master artisan. At the end of the hairpin, 4 small words were engraved: "Stay your hand." My heart rate suddenly spiked. All kinds of thoughts clashed wildly in my mind. Confused yet crystal clear, I suddenly remembered an old event from years ago. When we first arrived in the Northern Territory, Yunshu often sent letters to Xie Lin. Every single time, he would toss them to me unopened.
Look if you want to look, and burn them if you don't.
I peeked at them secretly 3 or 5 times. Every single letter was filled with mushy love talk. Before long, I found it very boring. Not daring to burn them, I kept them all in a small wooden box. Right now, Xie Lin held me tightly in his arms, though his grip was not overly harsh.
Why on earth do you refuse to believe me?
He buried his face in the crook of my neck and asked the question once more. I licked my dry lips, not knowing where to begin, so I simply kept my mouth shut and remained silent. Xie Lin gave a cold laugh. He let go of me and pointed at my forehead, starting to scold me.
Zhiwei, your heart is made of iron. No matter how I try, I can't warm it up. Must you vex me to death before you are satisfied?
I suddenly burst into laughter. Has your majesty ever held a block of iron before? You might as well hug a pile of cow dung instead. At least that thing is born warm, so you wouldn't have to waste your effort trying to heat it up. Xie Lin was so furious that his lips trembled. He paced around the courtyard, walking back and forth a few times, before stopping in front of me again.
Return to the palace with me.
No.
Why?
It is too suffocating in there.
You are my wife. We have bowed to heaven and earth, and we have drunk the nuptial cup. That means we must stay together for the rest of our lives. You promised me with your own mouth that you would always stay by my side. Always stay by my side.
Then your majesty should simply divorce me. I dodged his pointing finger. Your majesty can easily choose another empress from a noble family. There are plenty of beauties in the imperial harem, so you will certainly never lack people to serve you in the future.
Do you have any idea what nonsense you are talking about?
Xie Lin gripped both of my shoulders tightly, asking with gnashing teeth.
Do you think I would be reluctant to punish you according to the rules?
At worst, your majesty can just punish me. Even if you beat me to death, I will absolutely not go.
You truly don't have me in your heart. After 5 years of marriage, you don't even have a single shred of affection left for me.
I couldn't find any words to reply. In the end, Our conversation ended on a sour note. After Xie Lin left, my mood became extremely terrible. Like a tangled mess of yarn, my feelings were a chaotic mix. On one hand, I broke into a cold sweat over the harsh words I just said. On the other hand, I resented myself for being too dramatic and cowardly. I endured until nightfall, when the courtyard gate knocked once again. To my surprise, Quinong and Gu Jie were outside the door.
Sister.
Gu Jie rushed through the door with a single stride, behaving exactly as he did when he was a child. He plunged headfirst into my embrace. I was quite speechless and pushed him away with all my might. You're already a father now. How can you still be so undisciplined?
Ha ha ha. Even if I become a grandfather in the future, I'll still be your own little brother, sister.
He grinned from ear to ear, looking very festive, but his smile quickly faded.
Sister, you didn't sneak away because you were disappointed in me, did you? It wasn't that I didn't want to come see you. It was all brother-in-law. I mean His Majesty. He forced me to hold back.
Quinong quickly chimed in.
His Majesty did that for the sake of the bigger picture.
Guji's face flushed with embarrassment.
Ah, yes, yes. His Majesty. His Majesty. Wasn't it all for your own good, sister?
Guji told me everything. Back then, after I left the capital, Gu Huayuan finally lifted his house arrest. He sneaked out of the capital behind his family's back, exhausting 3 fast horses to death, and managed to intercept the carriage before it entered the north. But Xie Lin refused to let him see me at all.
If she didn't have the status of princess consort Jing, what do you think the Gu family would do to her? Have you thought about that? Can you protect her?
Gu Jie couldn't utter a single word in response. He knew the consequences in his heart. Following Xie Lin's instructions, he returned to the capital alone. From then on, he finally softened his stance toward Gu Huayuan and played nice with Gu Yunshu. Gu Huayuan treated him as a stepping stone for Gu Yunshu, clearing the path to a grand political career for him. As for his marriage alliance with the Duke of Ying's family, it was also secured by riding on this favorable momentum. It was only on his deathbed that Gu Huayuan realized, thanks to Guji's connection, the Duke of Ying's family had completely become Xie Lin's supporters.
Sister, please return with us. My life has been so miserable lately.
Haha. Just how miserable is it?
The Emperor suspects that I am secretly colluding with you. Every 2 or 3 days, he summons me into the palace. If he isn't dragging me to practice boxing, he is forcing me to drink. Unless I explain the whole back and forth story, he absolutely won't let me go. I'm almost driven crazy by his torment. Haha.
If I say I don't want to go back to that palace again, will you blame me?
You look down on Your Majesty. Why is that? Where exactly did he fall short?
How can I explain this clearly to him?
Before we left the capital this time, the Emperor made things very clear to us. As long as there is anything about him you find disagreeable, he will absolutely change it immediately. If you don't believe me, just ask Quinong.
He dragged Quinong in as a guarantor.
The Emperor indeed said those words.
When night fell, Gu Jie returned to the inn to rest, while Quinong stayed behind to keep me company. I inquired about where Kui is.
She is waiting in the palace. The Emperor said there was no need for such a large group to come.
But in reality, he was afraid that Quinong and Kui would run off together and disappear. I know this tactic well. How did you find this place?
Actually, it was quite easy to find. 2 months ago, he already knew you were hiding here.
Quinong revealed a lot of things to me in one breath.
That day, right after you left, Madame Gu rushed to Lingyan Temple, demanding to see you at all costs, fearing further trouble. I ignored her. She then turned and headed straight to the eldest Miss Gu's residence. First, eldest Miss Gu was poisoned by Madame Gu, and then her throat was slit, disfiguring her face. After Madame Gu returned to the mansion that night, she set a massive fire in the entire Jiu family. Only Chancellor Gu managed to escape, though he was also severely injured.
I was utterly bewildered. Why on earth would she kill Gu Yunshu?
I'm not sure. But the court was in a state of upheaval during that period, and many people suffered for it. There were rumors flying around outside, and all the neighbors speculated that Madame Gu had gone mad from the shock.
Why would Lady Ju go mad for no apparent reason? Thinking back to my past life, she and Gu Yunshu had been as close as mother and daughter until her death, and she had been deeply in love with Gu Huayuan. Could this be another scheme secretly set up by Xie Lin? Just what kind of methods did he employ? I tossed and turned, unable to figure it out. Anyway, once a person is dead, it is like a lamp going out. There is really no point in looking into it further. I slept very fitfully that night. Even though my mind was completely blank, I just couldn't fall asleep. With great difficulty, I drifted off, only to wake up startled several times in the middle of the night. By the next morning, Naturally, I woke up late. Just as I swallowed my breakfast, a sudden commotion broke out outside the courtyard. In addition to the noisy voices of people, there was also the sound of gongs and drums mixed in. The mute old woman pushed open the door to take a look, then ran back into the house with a face full of joy. Through her gesturing and my guessing, it took me a long time to understand. Xie Lin had come again. Xie Lin was straddling a large white horse, dressed in his official uniform. He was handing out money and gifts along the street, shouting at the top of his lungs to show off to the neighbors, saying that he had won a battle and been promoted, and that he had come specifically to take me back to the capital to live a good life. He had even prepared some small gifts to thank everyone for looking after me. Auntie Fan's house was closest to my small courtyard, so her gift box was heavier than anyone else's. Holding the gifts, she looked incredibly embarrassed and kept apologizing to me. Fan Yu also quickly bowed to apologize to me. Everyone else was beaming with joy, repeatedly wishing us a lifetime of happiness together. The scene was so bustling and festive that it looked exactly like a wedding. Once the onlookers had finally dispersed, I questioned Xie Lin. "What kind of play is your majesty putting on this time?" He curled his lips, his face glowing with triumph.
Cutting off your retreat.
"I never planned on marrying anyone else anyway."
It wouldn't do even if someone else wanted to.
Xie Lin took my hand and asked in a gentle, pleading tone,
"Can we stop fighting? I really don't want to be at odds with you."
Shedding his imperial air, the man before me suddenly overlapped with the image of that young prince from my past life. My heart softened with a gentle tenderness. Slipping away without even saying goodbye was indeed my fault.
It was my fault. I kept too many truths from you.
What has your majesty kept from me?
I told you before that I never cared for Yunshu. Actually, I didn't finish the second half of that sentence.
Xie Lin stared straight into my eyes, his gaze so intense it made my bones ache.
You are the only one in my heart. From beginning to end, you are the only one I have ever cared about.
My soul was nearly frightened out of my body. After a long silence, I finally choked out a question. When did this all begin?
Before Imperial Consort Mother succumbed to her illness and passed away. She once summoned you into the palace to play the zither. We met then. Do you still remember?
Just for that brief encounter.
Even I found it puzzling. If my consort mother hadn't passed away, I originally planned to ask her to intervene and call off that marriage.
Could it be your majesty deliberately angered the late emperor back then?
Only by suffering disaster and being exiled could you marry me as you wished.
Xie Lin's eyes, full of tenderness, hid a trace of guilt.
I'm sorry. I was being too selfish. Instead, it caused you to suffer.
How did things turn out this way? My mind was in a complete tangle, unable to wrap itself around the situation at all. Does your majesty believe in past lives and present incarnations? I had an absurd dream. In our past life we knew each other, but had no real connection. The person you had eyes for from beginning to end was always Yunshu. Dreams are always the opposite. Once a person dies, everything disperses. Even if there really are past and present lives, one would forget the messy affairs of the past life completely and start with a clean slate. Xie Lin's demeanor was perfectly calm, and not a single trace of panic could be seen on his face. The heart that had been in my throat finally settled back into place. My back had long been drenched in cold sweat.
I have already thought it through. When you return to the capital with me, you won't have to be rigidly confined inside the imperial palace. You can even appear at court to discuss state affairs.
What is the meaning of this?
The position of Prime Minister is currently vacant. How about I appoint you as the Prime Minister?
There is no need for your majesty to make such a grand scene.
I am by no means joking with you. During our time in the north, everyone witnessed your capabilities. I will first appoint you as the Prime Minister and later make you the Empress. That way, you will never have to live in fear again.
But you clearly already have a reigning Empress now.
No matter, as long as I can keep you by my side. I would rather have people point fingers and curse me.
Xie Lin grinned, slightly, looking like a smug rascal.
Unless you care too much about my reputation being ruined.
I just find it to be too much of a hassle. Empress first or Prime Minister first. When it comes down to it, they are much the same.
Then you are agreeing to return to the palace with me.
If one day your majesty grows tired of me, will you spare my life and let me leave?
If there ever comes a day when you grow tired of me, I will let you go. The tally for the Imperial Guard shall serve as proof of my sincerity. Lily, trust me completely, just this once.
If I become the Prime Minister, will the women of this world also be allowed to enter the court as officials?
It shall be entirely as the Empress commands.
As the morning sun just began to break through, everything in the world brightened along with it. I truly could not find a single reason to shake my head.